Extra, extra, read all about it. Today we're talking about newsletters on Knew Amsterdam Radio. Let's go. Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Flobo Boyce and you're listening to Knew Amsterdam Radio, the show for creatives like yourself, those who are working on projects and ideas and has a spark or creativity or the next big thing. This podcast is for you. How is your holiday break treating you? Somehow we're in the midst of it. Thanksgiving's in the rearview mirror. Christmas in the rearview mirror. Currently, as of this recording, we're still in the midst of Hanukkah. Kwanzaa starts tonight. And New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are on the horizon. I'm doing all right. A lot more subdued holiday season than what I'm used to, but not in a bad way. I know some people out there are just against the holidays. Those who say, I don't like Christmas. Those who say, I don't like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I personally don't quite get it, but at the same time, I really dislike Thanksgiving, so I respect it. So my Christmases, even the ones where I'm not actively with a giant family, I still take time to reflect on the reason for the season, whether or not you are religious or devout, whether or not you really love the red and white and blue lights, red and green and white and blue lights, or Santa Claus, or just sitting around watching Christmas films with your favorite eggnog type beverage. I'm kind of on the fence. I understand people who have a little more of a subdued Christmas, but I don't quite get or understand being that adamant against it. Not to knock anyone that does it, because frankly, you have to think differently if you're a creative person. So if you listen to this podcast and Christmas isn't for you, props to you. I respect it. I was giving you my perspective on that. So I'm okay. I'm doing all right. We're kind of in that same kind of lull. I mentioned it before on a podcast around this time last year that one of the most frustrating things about being an entrepreneur and having to feed for yourself and fend for yourself, feast or famine when it comes to getting clients, is that a lot of people point to the holidays as soon as November 15th rolls around and they say, hey man, let's talk after the holidays. And that is great. But at the same time, you're sitting there going man, that's 6 weeks of potential business deals and 6 weeks of new ventures and 6 weeks of new projects. I'm just slowing down because everything's out of my hands and I'm frustrated and I'm up thinking about what I can do in 2020, but I have to wait for 2020 to actually show up. I know it can be super frustrating, and I make it a point not to call these people out, because I think on my blog too, a couple of years ago, I had a whole post about the quote unquote holiday slowdown. So try to keep positive with that. But today's episode, we're talking about newsletters. Newsletters seem to be one of those things. Actually, before we even get into that, this is a new uncharted territory for me. And that is typically the whole point of the show is that I talk about things that worked for me or what I've seen or what I've read in the news. And I'm trying to think how we can apply that. Now, newsletters is always beneficial to a brand, but I'll be honest with you, I don't have one. I personally have not pulled the trigger on what a newsletter for my brand or my projects would look like. So I'm not saying you should do it, and don't take it as an interpretation of this guy's telling me to do something he doesn't do himself. Those who can't teach. It's just objectively what I've seen in my research. I'm telling you about the upsides and how you can use it and be innovative with it. But take it with a grain of salt. So I'm just, full disclosure, it's not like I'm coming off Mount Olympus being the newsletter king and saying, hey, look, this is my experience. But rather, as a fellow creator like you, who's still struggling in some ways, I think we're all still struggling in some ways to grow our business. Not saying you're doing this unfortunately, but if you are an athlete, you may want to win a championship this year, and maybe you want to win next year and have a dynasty. So there's always steps for you to achieve, much like how if you don't have 1 billion followers, you can always strive for that billion, and hopefully you are working very hard and getting that billion, and that is the struggle in that case. But yeah, today's episode is about newsletters and what that means for you and why we do them. Now, the very, very honest answer is, especially for those of you who are in a product-based business, is that's a really good way to let people know of upcoming sales and new lines and collections, right? You want to keep your audience in the circle of what you're working on, right? You want to see, hey, look, just log on, follow this newsletter, and maybe when I do have a deal that's more to your liking, then I'll let you know, right? There's a couple of fashion brands that I wait for and I buy only when a sale's afoot. Currently I work on a digital show where we review WWE shows, and a lot of my on-air costuming comes from wearing wrestling t-shirts, and this is totally neither here nor there, but a wrestling t-shirt's like $20 plus shipping ends up being $40 a tee, which is a lot, especially because it comes out of my pocket. And I'm literally wearing it for an hour an episode. So what I would do is I would sign up to wrestling clothing sites, whether it's at Hot Topic or ProWrestlingTees.com or WWEshop.com, and I'll wait until there's sales. Hey, 20% off or half off or free shipping, and that's when I strike. So a lot of ways, newsletters are important for me as a consumer to wait and see if there's a sale or anything. But if you're in a product-based business and you're looking for a way to broadcast new lines, it's definitely a good way to do it. Those people who have signed up for your newsletter have at least a passing interest in you and what your brand represents. Use that to your advantage, right? Use that to let them know of new content you have available. Let them know that a new episode of the brand new YouTube only exclusive podcast, What's Up Flobo, is now available for streaming. Okay, that's a very, very personal example. But you know what I'm saying? If you're a content creator and you have content on different platforms, if you're on TikTok and YouTube and you do live shows, or you have a Facebook show or an Instagram you want people to follow, we all understand the purpose of being on many different social media channels. But if you approach your personal brand like a business, you would say, look, I have a calendar. This piece of content will be optimized for this platform. There's a reason why my Facebook post isn't on TikTok and vice versa. But if you have someone that's a super fan of yours and you want to tell people what you're doing on each different channel, instead of you trying to try to repurpose each bit of content for each platform every day, you can really have your separate plans and just round everything up and say, hey, look, if you have an interest in my brand or my services, this is what's going on all around the world. I actually follow, I'm a big fan of the New York Mets, and I follow Amazing Avenue, which is the SB Nation's New York Mets blog. And every day they have a post called the Mets Roundup, where they talk about news bits inside the organization, outside the organization, inside their division, and inside baseball as a whole. So you can really drill down to what news and tidbits are very, very important to you. So not only is it good, newsletters are good for announcing products and sales, you also have that basically your state of your brand or your state of your product or service, that someone can get a digest of what's going on. They are in tune of what you're doing, and they may not necessarily be a customer or client today, but they just might be. And what do I mean by that? I'll explain it after this. I got to say, Knew Amsterdam Radio is brought to you part by Anchor FM. Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? You see, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? And most importantly, I don't want to deal with cables and wires and all those things. You see, the answer to every single one of these questions is pretty simple. Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And you can use your phone, which is pretty awesome. Now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So if you ever wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Yes, you are a superstar with all the content you're creating, whether it is the actual art or craft, or maybe content about that art or craft. Whether you are a singer or you releasing albums that showcases your singing. Whether you do video blogs about the nervous butterflies in your stomach before you perform live on stage, or whether you are a bookbinder that wants to do instructional videos about on YouTube, how to bind books at home. The idea is that sometimes people may be into what you're offering. They can be very, very into what you want, and maybe they have an inkling to support you, but maybe not today at the same time. Maybe it's I want to make sure that this is someone I want to buy into. A lot of creators now have Patreons, and for those of you who are not familiar, Patreon is a website and a service that allows creative people to offer subscriptions to fans so they can buy in monthly and they can create content just for them or have perks just for them. Subscribing is pretty easy. Hey, look, this is pretty cool. I am going to buy in. I want to support this creator. Let me get their Patreon. But sometimes you may be on the fence. You may say, I like what I'm seeing or hearing from this person or what they're doing, but I'm not sure if I want to buy in today. Hey, look, this is really, really great furniture. This person has handcrafted and is selling in this great gallery. I want to buy a chair from them someday. I just don't want to buy it today, but I want to keep it top of mind. What can I do to keep myself refreshed? And a lot of creators just wish and hope that, okay, well, they may not buy it today, but tomorrow it may happen. Just a deal. Your potential clients and customers are bombarded with advertising, whether it's by text or word of mouth or commercials all day, every day. Things can slip the mind. I know a lot of times I've come across a website that I may think is interesting and I'll bookmark it, never to come back ever again. Not because I don't want it anymore, but it's just out of sight, out of mind. And there's an example I used earlier in the show about mattresses that may apply here. Is that people always ask, of all the ways to advertise a brand of mattress, why is it, not mattress stores, because mattress stores, there's billboards, there's funny characters, there's cartoons everywhere. I'm from New York, so Sleepy's is the big one. And then there's like the guy here in LA that goes, we'll be any price, all your mattress is free. That guy, the actual brand, Serta, Sleepy, King Cullen, right? Wait, that's a grocery store. But you know what I'm saying about. Serta and Sleepy's are the big brands that they talk about. They almost always advertise on radio. And the reason for that is like no one really buys a mattress impulsively. That's something that happens every 5 to 10 years, even though 7's ideal. And they go to a store and they lay down a couple mattresses and then they pick one. So there's really no benefit to go out there and have big splashy Super Bowl ads or giant billboards saying, try the new Feather Cloud. No, it doesn't make sense to do that. Same with car insurance. Either you have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, there's a couple options you heard about and there's a couple options you haven't heard about. The idea is that when someone's talking to you about available car insurance companies, it sounds familiar, right? For as long as I've been driving a car, I have Geico insurance. That's my car insurance provider, right? That's what it is. But if I was in a market to do a new one, I've heard of Mercury. I've heard of Liberty Mutual. I've heard of Progressive. Fred Loya, I didn't. I had to go search it. It's legit, but I had to search it. And that may be the difference between going with what you know and what you don't. When I'm walking to a mattress store, the first thing I sat onto was a Serta because I just knew what Serta was. I've heard the word said so many times in advertising that I was preconditioned to know that was a good brand because why else would they advertise? Though I couldn't tell you the last visual epic featuring a Serta mattress. Newsletters kind of serve that purpose as well. You may not be able to make a sale today or maybe no one wants to book you today, but if someone can actively or even passively, I guess, latch on and say, I want to know more about you and I'm not going to buy today, but I'm going to consider it. And you make sure to plan it. You pump out content regularly to that newsletter, much like how you do your regular content on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. Even if it's as simple as that baseball example I said earlier, if you rounding up links and clips and sending it over, that keeps your brand on top of mind. And that's all you can really ask for, is that when someone's considering something in what you offer, that you're on top of mind. And newsletters can be a tool to do it. I've seen it happen with big companies, different segments, apparel for sure. Superdry is a newsletter I personally sign up to. I'm not a Superdry guy per se, but I bought one of their, I call them fanny packs, but I think the British way is called a bum bag. And I said, hey, I'm probably not going to buy a Superdry shirt for a minute, but hey, let me know if something catches my eye. And I still open the newsletter or the flyer or what have you when it's sent to my mailbox because maybe today's a day where a brand new bum bag shows up where I'm just all about it. I know we are people that are so locked into what we want to do, what we want to create, what we want to grow. The grinding of it all may seem like a chore, and it is. And another tool to add to your toolbox may seem like an eye-rolling measure. But again, I implore you guys to reconsider good old newsletters. That's all the time we have for this edition of New Amsterdam Radio. Make sure you check out this edition and all the other episodes of New Amsterdam Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. We just relinked the Spreaker account, so now it'll be syndicated over at YouTube. Huzzah! You can follow the show at newamsterdam.com. Follow me. That's me, Flobo Boyce, over at flobito.com. That's FLOBITO.com. Big things are happening. Instagram's going. The DJ Instagram's going. Brand new fireside chat series on YouTube. It's called What's Up, Flobo. The album American for Now is available. Those are just a few of my creative projects. What are yours? Reach out to me also on Twitter at Flobo Boyce or Instagram at Flobito. Let me know so we can bring it up. If you have a kind of a creative work or a lane that you don't think that's been covered in detail here on the show, let me know. If you're just a hard-working wood whittler and you're saying there's not enough content for wood whittling, you let me know. Make sure to make that a part of a future episode. This is New Amsterdam Radio, and until next time, the city is yours.